These are your invitations to find out why you should own Demons 1 and 2 on physical media. Demons 1 and 2 are cult classics for good reason. My first exposure to the Demon franchise came from The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, which I was streaming on Shudder, and they were showing Demons 2. Shortly after watching this movie, I knew I needed to own it on physical media. But why, you ask? I mean, I can just stream it, right? I have a subscription to Shudder, so I can just play it whenever I wanted to. But really what's happening in the streaming landscape is these subscriptions are getting more expensive. There's less content because there's so many different platforms that you need to be subscribed to, and the picture quality is getting worse. So what I started to do was go through some of these platforms to see some of the best movies that are on there, and then picking up physical copies of the movies that I know I always want to be able to see. And that's why I went ahead and bought the Demons 1 and 2 collection so that I can watch these at any time. But what is it about these movies that makes it worthwhile to own? Well, first, let's go into what these movies are. In Demons, a masked man offers tickets to a horror movie sneak preview at a mysterious Metropole cinema. When a patron is scratched by a prop displayed in the theater lobby, she transforms into a flesh-ripping demon. One by one, the audience members mutate into horrible creatures hell-bent on destroying the world. And in Demons 2, the apocalyptic terror continues. A televised horror film spells doom for residents of a luxury high-rise apartment as demons are unleashed through the TV screen at a young girl's birthday party. As more and more residents are infected and transformed into bloodthirsty demons, a young couple fights to survive as they try to escape hell on Earth. I mentioned at the top that I saw Demons 2 first before seeing Demons 1. And what a ride it was! So I headed out in the background as I was doing other things, and about 20 minutes into the movie I started to realize that, I wasn't really looking up that often while this movie was on, but I could hear things, and what I started to notice was that all I was hearing for those first 20 minutes was screaming. And I looked up, and I was captivated. And little did I know that basically that was just scratching the surface for this movie, because the remaining runtime of this movie gets incredibly more intense as minutes and minutes go by, and that screaming just gets more scary, more howling, and more intense. They do so many things in here that are basically taboo in a movie typically, especially in even a horror movie, and they do it 2 times over, and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. A couple things that I really like: Bobby Rhodes, he played Tony. He was the bodybuilder in the high-rise apartment. He has such an intensity, and just he incites everyone to fight back against these demons. And he was brilliant. Everything that he was doing was setting everybody up for success. His efforts go very far, and I appreciated the way that his character really brought everyone together. Another thing that really caught my attention about these movies, or about this movie in particular, I will get to the other one, is the score. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it is definitely 80s sounding. It's powerful, and it really does set the pace for the action, and it really got me into it. So now, let me go into Demons 1, because I also streamed that on Shudder, and I wanted to see, look, these come in a collection. If I'm gonna buy this, I want to make sure that I like both movies, because it's money and it's shelf space. I want to make sure that I actually want this in my collection. And thankfully, Demons 1 is fantastic as well. Now, my viewing experience is kind of interesting, because seeing 2 first, I didn't realize that 2 is basically a rehash of 1, because it's the same exact events play out, but they're done in a way that is, just different settings. I mean, there's some of the same characters are here. Bobby Rhodes is in this movie too. He's a pimp instead of being a bodybuilder. And he does the same things. He incites everyone to go after the demons. closes everything off. He's got the strategic mind and he's got the body to go ahead and act out what he needs to do. So it's kind of interesting to see it this way. One other thing that I really liked about this movie, and actually I like it more over the second one, was the score here. This one was done by Claudio Simonelli, who is famous for being in Goblin, and he's done the soundtrack for things like Dawn of the Dead, which is also one of my favorite soundtracks that's out there in scores. That score that they did for this movie was incredible, and that I just have it constantly playing, and it's just so cool, so 80s sounding. I mean, everything about it just reminds me of the Inspector Gadget music too. It's fantastic. But the rest of the movie too, it's got an insane level of intensity just like the second one, and it's creepy. I mean, I'm not typically creeped out by movies, but just seeing the way these things move, act, walk, it's actually horrifying. So, fantastic collection, 2 movies back to back, incredible. I would love to see these like back to back, like literally you pull out the credits for the first one, go right into the second one, and just see what that experience looks like, because it is nuts. So I opted for the Blu-ray copy of this instead of getting the 4K release. This is one of those instances where I felt like less is more, because sure, I want high quality when it comes to these collections and having the physical copy of a movie, but this movie actually doesn't need to be 4K. I mean, it's got that grit to it. I mean, the Blu-ray version looks fantastic too. It's 1080p. It's not like it's going to be anything like bad if you're going to try to watch it that way. These movies, you almost kind of need a little bit of a grain to them to really appreciate them, to like capture them in their times. And that's where I was blown away. Seeing this on Blu-ray versus watching it on Shudder, it's a night and day difference to see what this looks like and what it should look like. I'd imagine the 4K version looks even more fantastic, but I'm perfectly fine with just having the Blu-ray. Also, the 4K version was double the price, and to me, while I love these movies, I couldn't justify it at the time. One other thing, that when you're looking at a streaming movie versus owning it, the extra features are something that really gives you a little bit more of a flavor as to what's going on with the movie and really gets you into the whole experience, and that's missing these days. If you go ahead and stream it, you can't see anything more. You just see the movie and then that's it, and you go ahead, you look up a couple things on Wikipedia and Google, and then you're just like, okay, the movie's done for me. But owning these movies, you get to really see a little bit more into the movies. You get your commentary, you get all these extra features that tell you the real story around these movies. So, like I said, I have the Blu-ray copy of this, and it is a really cool collection. And when I look at some of the extras that come with it, I was actually really interested in this, because what they do is on both discs, so there's 2 discs on here. One has Demons 1, the other one has Demons 2, and they have video essays on each of these. The first being a video essay that is called Produced by Dario Argento, a visual essay by author and critic Michael Mackenzie exploring the legendary filmmaker's career as a producer. This was really cool for me, because I did, after watching this movie, I did want to go a little bit deeper into Argento's past. And this was a fantastic collection to just kind of understand, in like a documentary, that I can really understand what he was doing. And it is so in-depth, and it was so interesting. And I thought that that was a really cool way of like really appreciating what he was doing. And it's done in an unbiased way. I mean, it's not like it's saying that he's the greatest horror director of all time. It really does go into his psyche and what he was doing, and how he was approaching different movies and what his take on things were. So I really like that a lot. There's also some other features here that are, you have your audio commentary. You also have an interview with Claudio Simonelli, which I thought was really cool. I mean, I love the score so much that I wanted to hear his perspective as to what he was doing and creating the score for the movie. So I thought that was really cool. And for Demons 2, This also has a video essay, but this video essay is actually about the Demons movies. And it goes really in depth into the movies. And, one thing I will say about these is that I love them. I really enjoyed watching them. They're super fun to watch. But they are, in my mind, they're a little bit mindless movies. There's nothing here that I felt like was them trying to send a message or have deep meaning into anything. But this video essay does go pretty in depth and tries to create something out of it. And I just appreciate the effort that went into it. I think that it's a little bit of a reach. I don't think that they were trying to set the world on fire by making this movie. I think that they were just trying to make a really fun horror movie. But it tries to bring in a little bit more perspective on things and the way that they're handling, spacing and technology, which I thought was super interesting. And it's a different way of looking at these movies. And again, this is the things that you miss if you just stream a movie. You don't get to see that extra level of what's going on here and why you should appreciate some of these things. And I thought that was really, really cool. Another thing that I really liked about this collection was that it came with little bits and little extras. Like I showed earlier, you get your invitation to the Metropole Theater, just like what happens in Demons 1. And then you also get your birthday party invitation. And that, once I opened the package and I saw that, I was hooked. And I was like, this is cool. It was a nice little pop for me to be like, okay, now I'm glad I own this, because it's that little bit of extra that makes me feel like a true fan to see it. So I thought that was really, really cool. So 80s Italian horror movies are going to be hard to find at any of these streaming services, especially when they go bust and then they're just, you have your different studios have their own services. I feel like a movie like this is going to get lost in the shuffle. And that's exactly why this is a movie that once I streamed it, I knew I needed to own it on physical media, because you don't know what's going to happen. This feels like it's going to be one of those rare instances of a movie that will just disappear. And I think that there's a lot here to really appreciate. It's so much fun to watch, and it's so much fun to be able to go back and just kind of, experience this over and over. And if this got pulled from Shudder, or if Shudder went away, who knows what's going to happen next. So I full-heartedly and highly recommend owning this. Blu-ray or 4K, I think you won't go wrong. It's just really a price difference when you're looking at it. But this is definitely something worth owning. Now, as I mentioned, I streamed this first. So if you did want to go ahead and stream these, like I mentioned, they were on Shudder when I did watch these. And I've seen Demons floating around on all the other free streaming services like Plex and Tubi. So definitely, if you want to see these movies first before making the $40 purchase, go for it. I highly recommend these movies. And I think that after watching these, you're going to say, I need to add these to my collection. This movie takes an official spot on the Masters of Nonsense movie shelf. Are you thinking about getting this movie now? Let us know by joining the discussion on our Threads page and all of our social media available on this screen. Like, subscribe, repeat. Always repeat.